I figure we'll keep it loose.
Sure.
Whatever we want to talk about, whatever comes up. If you guys talk amongst each other, talk whatever. Like, I have no big agenda. I've got a list of questions and shit, but whatever we want to do. So, yeah.
Well, I guess we should probably. Where do we start? Like before we make the record, do we start with?
That's that. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I know I talked to you. We might have talked about the beginning of the band a little bit, but not with both of you guys, together and everything.
No, we haven't. We've never. I guess we've never really talked about it.
No,
on chat, like me and Justin, about how the band started. But I guess I emailed Justin. But this is at 2018 or yeah.
This
18,
was you emailed me on Thanksgiving Day, our Thanksgiving, right. 2018.
Right. So that's we're almost hitting 4 years or 3.
I think that's 4 years, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
It doesn't feel like 4 years.
But no, what made you send the email?
Well, I remember the Innumerable Forms record came out, Punishment and Flesh, and it was like your debut LP.
Right.
But you guys had been a band for ever. And I was like, holy fuck, they did it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, how do I get in touch with this guy? I've liked so much of his stuff. So I asked Chris Bruni from Profound Lore. I was like, would you give me his email? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then I think I just dropped you a line. And then I don't even remember how we got on the subject of doing a band together. Do you?
Well, I think, yeah. Well, I think in the email you said, "Hey, man, if you need anything, just let me know."
Oh yeah, that sounds about right. I say that.
Yeah. So me being the opportunist was like, because I want to say I was a big Tomb Mold fan, especially because Manor had come out maybe 4 months earlier or something like that, sometime during the summer. Yeah, maybe 6 months or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So me being I'm always down to play music, especially at that time. And I was like, I wonder if he would be down to do something, because I thought it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I guess, what were you doing at that point? You had Numeral Forms going, Magic Circle's still happening.
Magic Circle was still going on. Summerlands, yep. But Summerlands was kind of doing stuff, not really. We did the record in 2016, but we weren't a fully active band or whatever.
Were you guys playing shows?
We were playing shows every once in a while. I would say maybe 3 or 4 shows a year since 2016. So
do you remember playing a show in Philly with Eternal Champion at a really small venue?
Yeah, that was a good show.
I had friends that drove down from Toronto for that show.
Yeah, I think you told me that one time.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And that
was a good one.
So then you're that, and I guess Wound Man as well. Were you doing Wound Man at that point?
In Wound Man, yeah. But actually, you know what? At the time, I bet you Wound Man was probably the most active of all those bands.
That would make sense.
Yeah,
that would make sense. And then I guess you said we could make music, and then I guess I probably said, what do you want to do?
Right.
And then you kind of so you kind of laid the foundation for the band.
Yeah, I guess I did.
But go on.
No. I did, because I said, well, I wanted to do something Doom.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, you already have a Doom band. And I was like, well, I know that, but I still want to do something,
Well, yeah, I remember when you were like, well, we could do a kind of a Peaceville 3 style thing. I was the idea of doing that was super intimidating.
Yeah, see, I didn't know at the time. You told me that later.
Yeah. I probably was just oh yeah, I can work with that. But in my head, I'm like, I don't know how to write that music. That's it's very detailed, melodramatic stuff. I had never tried anything on that scale, especially
you say that, but then you have fucking Dream Unending, which is about as detailed as it gets, man.
Yeah, well, I guess I didn't know I had that in me though.
Okay,
I guess that's what I mean. What were you gonna say, Justin?
Well, what I was gonna say is what convinced me that you were capable of something like that was just some of the the intro to the first song on Manor. The song, the kind of weird melody. I was like,
no quarter riff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And some of the other stuff on that record made me think like, I bet you this dude could do that. Like, it would be weird and it would be cool and be interesting, and that's what made me like want to do it. So it wasn't that I just randomly came up with that thought. Like I had a vision in mind, you know,
some reasoning.
Yeah,
and some reason, right?
How did it go from being Peaceville 3 like influence to like adding in like your own flavor and going to where it got?
I don't know. I think that kind of came organically out of, I think, just like you and I, Justin, just talking about bands we liked.
Yes.
Realizing we liked a lot of the same stuff, but also just a lot of stuff in general. Right. And both being like, like big Cure fans and stuff like that. It was like, well, that stuff's like super easy to play over like slow kind of melodic chord progressions, because it's the same. It's like the same chords that those goth bands are playing, except it's just slower and it's sometimes more low tuned and heavier. But like all those like kind of creepy or wistful melodies you want to put on top, like they all fit. So it made sense, I guess. Like, so we talked about that, but we never talked about. Oh, go on.
No, and you had also said, and I agreed with you, that you wanted to do something different and maybe something a little bit outside our comfort zones, or you know what I mean? Like, so, and I was totally down for it, because I was looking for a band that would kind of do that, that would be a little bit different, a little more experimental, than what I usually do. So you had that mentality from the start, and then I kind of jumped on board.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was a question I had, because being that you guys have such like a signature sound, like you don't really sound like any other band, like as far as classification goes. Like I was wondering that, like, was that a big part of the mindset going into it? Like we want to do something related to Doom, but do we want to keep it like pretty far away from what's going on, as far as trends go and things like that?
I think a little bit. I think we were very like, we don't want to, I think we didn't want to blur the lines too hard between like being like, we didn't want to come off as like a death metal band at all. So there's no real fast parts, right? There's no blast beats or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. We decided that pretty early on.
Yeah. And then I think we like the way our sound was sort of just refined was just every time I worked on a song and was like, oh, I could put this there, and just realizing that we could just keep stacking layers of things and make it sound, otherworldly. But I think some of those Doom bands, like that otherworldly quality, like that's like the band Disembowelment, right? Like they have like a perfect atmosphere to that stuff. But so it's all about, it's kind of like taking a look at things you like, but not trying to exactly replicate it. It's more like, instead of like how a riff sounds, it's more so how it makes me feel. And then it's like, I want to capture that feeling. You know what I mean? That's why if you like listen to music or look for inspiration through that lens, as opposed to like, what's a sick riff I can steal or whatever. And I'm like, we all do that too, but it's more so like listening to something and being like, oh, like that hits me like right in the chest. So it's like, oh, I want to write something that kind of captures that essence, right? And I think that helps color a lot of like the sound of Dream Unending, is like just kind of like chasing for that. And I think on the new record especially, it's a lot of like the longer songs always just feel like, how many times can we like chase for tension and have a release before the song's over? And we're jumping ahead though, but I feel like that kind of stuff. And I feel like we thought more about, for lack of a better way of putting it, a vibe rather than like, we need to sound like this band. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably for the best. I would say. I mean,
definitely.
I guess it depends on who you ask, but.
What were some other like when you guys were talking and like just probably talking about music, like what were some bands that you guys did connect on?
Let's see. Definitely Anathema. Like as far as like heavy bands go, Anathema. Yeah. Like that's a big one.
Yeah, that was like, I mean, that's my favorite Peaceville 3 band. I think that's probably Derrick's too. Yeah.
Well, they have like, I mean, I like some of the, I've really come around to some of the later Paradise Lost stuff, but like there's a lot of Anathema records I like even going into the 2000s, and that's just like, I like that. Like I like when bands will just, their sound evolves, I guess. but what's interesting to me consuming that entire catalog is like I can listen to like the Silent Enigma, one of the early records, and be like, oh, there's a part on this record that's awesome. I want to like capture that. And then go fast forward like 8 years later to like Judgment, like a kind of fully soft record, and be like, well, there's a lot I like about this. And it's like sort of like, well, how do I blend the two kind of thing, right? That band for sure. Justin and I love all the same like kind of alternative rock, like Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, King's X. King's X a big one. For sure. What other one?
I noticed you've got the King's X quote.
Yeah, we do. That's,
in the booklet for the new one.
Yeah. That was. Yeah, I like putting quotes in records. I got that from Max, my bandmate in Dream Unending, or in Tumult, I mean. But maybe someday live. But he's always got good ones, and especially for like instrumental tracks or just like throwing it on like the back of a record or at like the bottom of the liner notes.
You said they do that on jazz records, right?
They do, yeah. They do that, and jazz records, it's great because they'll just have a whole person like write a whole foreword like on the back of a record, right? About the album, which is cool. It's like, yeah, I always wanted like to have someone write a foreword for like a record I make. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah. And like, I don't know who I'd get, but it's something to put in the back of my mind for later.
So, okay, so you guys were like, you had a few bands that you like definitely agreed upon.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys live apart from each other.
Yeah.
So once you agreed on something, I mean, you guys were talking, you guys had a connection with all that kind of stuff. Like, where did the writing start out?
I guess I wrote like one song or half a song maybe, and sent it to Justin, and then he was like, you're on the right track, but it needs work. And I think I scrapped most of it and started over. And then that song would have ended up becoming In Cipher I Weep, which is technically the third track on Tide Turns Eternal.
What do you remember, Justin, like what it was about it in the beginning that you were like, I don't know?
The beat, the first thing that he presented to me, the first song was good, but to me it just sounded like a Tomb Mold song, like played slower,
Kind of like Crowbar.
And I was like, I don't know about that, but
okay.
But yeah. So I was like, this is cool, but I think I may have even told you that I was like, this seems more in the realm of Tomb Mold, and you were like,
probably,
you're like, I get it, no problem. Yeah. And then you came back a little while later, like rather quickly, with most of what became In Cipher I Weep. I would say like 90% of it or something.
Yeah, I would say.
And I was like, this is cool.
Maybe like the whole outline, but just like one guitar or something. Like I feel like
that is interesting too, because that song is probably the only one where like you could pick up a little Tomb Mold when it gets heavy for a minute.
Yep.
So that makes sense that, you know what I mean? Like it started off that way.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me because, with every project or style of music you work on, like you're kind of starting from nothing for the most part, right? So I never tried to write doom metal before that band, but I had just come off like 3-4 years of like writing Tomb Mold songs, right? So it's pretty natural. It makes sense to me that the early song ideas would sound like Tomb Mold, right? Because it's like you need a familiar spot to start at. And then like as you keep playing it more and more, and you're just kind of like crafting a different shape or like a different style of your writing. And that's why doing bands is so interesting, especially new ones where it's like, I don't know what this will sound like, so let me just see where it takes me. And so I sent you that song, and then I think after that, Adorned in Lies was next.
Adorned in Lies was probably like, I remember I was out in California. Magic Circle were playing some shows. We played LA, and I remember being in LA when you sent me what would become Adorned in Lies, and that's when I was like, this is awesome. Like we have a band here for sure. You know what I mean? Like, cause it was like the riffs were great. It didn't feel like you trying to emulate this band or that band. Like it felt complete, and it felt like its own thing. And that's when I really got excited.
Yeah, that was a good one. I remember you were like, but you were so unsure on that intro. You're like, I don't know about that. And I said, just trust me.
Yeah.
But it was like, yeah, with one guitar, it's just like, I don't know. But then it's like, let me fill it out. And then
that's what you said. Yeah. You're like, let me fill it out and let me put some bass on it. And then that changed everything. That changed the psychology of it. That changed everything.
Oh,
so you had like a vision for it. Just just something rough you sent over.
Exactly. And that's like a lot of my like writing process. And I'm sure a lot of people are like this, where like how it sounds in my head, like it almost always ends up kind of being that way when I finish like recording something properly. So it's sort of like Tide Turns Eternal sounds like how it does in my head. Those Two Mold records sound like how they sounded in my head by the end. And so, but it's funny, like a quick aside, I was working on a music thing, and usually when I write music, like I write like completely alone, like no one is sort of like a bystander to my writing process. But now, like living with my wife, she's sort of like subjected to it. So she'll hear all these things over and over and over again, and then I'll like be like, oh, here, I recorded something, here it is. And she's like, all of this sounds familiar. But she's like, is this how it sounds in your head? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, man, when I hear it out of context, it makes no fucking sense. It's like, oh yeah, no. Like, so it's like with that song, like, yeah, like I had a vision, like I could hear like drums to it. And I was like, I know this will be good. But I think that song, like I didn't tell you anything to do. I just trusted you would do it. And you did.
With the drums?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there was maybe like a couple of parts on the record where you're like, all right, I'd like you to do this. Yeah. And so I would try that. But for the most part,
always where there's double kick.
Double kick. Yes. Yeah. Right.
And that's it. Aside from that, I don't really have notes unless you're trying to bounce you want me to bounce an idea off you.
Right.
But then, yeah, we kind of, I wrote a bit more and then we put it on hold for a while. The pandemic happened. I realized I wasn't going to move. And then that's when we kind of went back to it. And that's when we really started to find like the sound of the band. Because by that point I had basically written the title song, Dream Unending. And I think that's the song where, if someone's like, what is this band? It's like, you show them that song. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a big one for sure.
Because it's got almost all the trademarks. I guess Ecstatic Rain now has all the trademarks of what Dream Unending is. But for the time, it was like, that was like sort of like the quintessential song. I mean, it's called Dream Unending, right? Like, so, but that was the one where I remember like when I was writing it and I got to like, I was basically wrapping up like that big clean break where it goes back into the heavy. And I was just like, this is so good. And I was like, I'm going to be so crushed if Justin doesn't like this.
No, I was pretty blown away when you sent that one to me. That was another one where I was just like, all right, like we have to make this happen,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like, was there any challenges, like as far as like when you would get some of these songs that were kind of put together a little bit and you had to add in the drums and your vocals, like were there any, I don't know, challenges with that, or like was it pretty seamless like once you got as far as knowing what you wanted to do with it?
No, I was so nervous. I was like, because you're presented with like 11-minute songs with just guitar and you're like, shit, like what, like I was definitely intimidated by it, but I knew that I'd booked time with Arthur, and we were going to do the drums with Arthur. And so I was like, you know what, if like, I trust that guy, you know what I mean? Like we'll get through it. You know what I mean? Like no matter what, we'll make it happen. I actually booked out an entire week because I was like, I don't know, maybe the song, maybe it takes a few hours. Maybe a song will take a few days. Who knows? Yeah. So I booked a full week to do the drums with him, and it came together easier than I thought. I had really meditated on the songs. I had practiced the songs on my own, just playing along to the recordings and stuff like that. So I was pretty familiar with them.
You'd had the luxury of like time to sit with the songs, which I think probably
for
really
sure
helped, which is
definitely
the benefit of like, I guess, just like me being able to get you stuff so quickly and then having the luxury of time.
Yes,
yeah, I remember,
right, exactly.
I remember when you're like, yeah, I'm going for a week. I was like, holy shit. And then I was like, how long am I going to go for to record the guitars? It was like 3 days.
Yeah. Like I said, it was, to me, it was the great unknown, and then also,
dude, same.
I wanted to save a day with Arthur to go over vocal patterns. The drums was one thing. The vocals were actually what I was most nervous about. So I was like, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to sing over these songs. Like, we'll see what happens.
That was my big question. Yeah. Because there's so many pretty parts and it gets so dreamy. And then you get the heavier. I mean, yeah. So kind of like talk about how you figured that out.
Well, Arthur was big with that too. I got to give him props because what we did, before I had written some lyrics before that, but what we did after we finished tracking the drums, we went through all the songs and we recorded vocal patterns. So I wasn't singing particular lyrics, but I was kind of like grunting and growling along to the songs, like kind of like we figured out, okay, here you do this, here you do that, don't do anything right here. You know what I mean? So like I had kind of like a game plan going into it. With the vocals, and that helped like immensely. Like I don't know if I could have gotten through it if we didn't do that beforehand.
Did you do that for the new record as well? Like,
oh yeah. No, that's my go-to now. That's what I do.
I mean, fair enough, right? Like,
yeah,
he's got a good ear for that stuff too.
He's got a good ear, yeah, and he knew what we were going for and stuff, and so that really worked out.
Yeah, no, and like it was pretty seamless. I think everything, the only thing that happened during your side of the process that wasn't even a thing was, in the Needful, there's a bass break, and we like sliced that in half.
That's
right. That was the only thing where it was like, oh, this is not a snag, but a note we hit where it's like, we should change this in the song, and that's easy though, because it's just like, okay, just cut that part out, and then like go from there.
Yeah, it felt a little meandering when we were recording the drums.
But it was definitely meandering. That's what I do.
Yeah, no, but like it's cool, but I think the way that we arranged it after that was like perfect.
It was a really good note. Like it just like, you know what it's sort of like, sometimes like a hard stop in a song, like just like a breath, like almost like enough time to take a breath. It's like really builds intensity, and it's like if that bass part had been longer, it wouldn't have, like, the intensity would have dropped, and then the whole song's ruined. So it's like,
right. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
What about, like, Justin, you did obviously some doomier stuff before this, but like, what was your approach coming into it, like with the drums? As far as style goes, like, did you have something in mind, or you just kind of vibed with the songs and figured it out?
Yeah, I didn't go in being like, well, I'm going to do this because skepticism to that, but like, but it kind of just ended up that way anyways. Like, I think with me, and when I kind of, think about drums and doom and death doom, like, I personally like it simple. I like it big, big accents, hard hitting, but I don't like it too complicated. You know what I mean? Like, that's where like Thorgothan, skepticism, anathema, like I just love the way those drums are played. It's simple, but it's just so effective.
Yeah, like the drama's there, it just adds a big power. Yeah, for sure.
And it works with like all the guitars kind of like swirling around where
exactly. Yeah, I think
everything feels balanced.
Yeah, I think a restrained performance is kind of what's needed for songs like that,
There's some big moments on the new record though. I feel like you leaned into it a bit more.
Yeah, I leaned into it a little bit more than usual, but still, like, nothing too over the top. I don't think so, at least.
No, I guess not.
I respect that too, because I mean, going from playing like such fast stuff that you do, and then also being able to do this slow stuff, which to some people probably sounds super easy, but obviously, is not. That's pretty cool. I mean, just as, I guess it's a side note, but like, that's a pretty big difference. Were you always drawn to the slower stuff, or did that come later in life, did you have to work at that much?
I mean, I would say when I was like 14 and just kind of getting into the drums, all I wanted to play was fast. You know what I mean? Like, I was big kill 'em all guy. And then I got into hardcore, and like, I like, for me at least, I like 80s hardcore, the fast, fast beats and stuff like that. Thrash metal, hardcore, stuff like that. So it wasn't until a little bit later on, maybe like in my 20s, when I kind of got more into doom, I really kind of connected with playing slow. And now, like for me, like I can play fast, but like I would much rather play like slow stuff. That's just me. To me, it just has more power.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm kind of the same. I mean, before I liked Doom, I liked a lot of like slowcore bands, right? Like Low or Red Hot Painters of Idaho and stuff like that. So it's like, because there's always just way more dramatic sounding. So then Doom just made a lot of sense to me. But really, once I started hearing the melodic stuff, because there's only so much like kind of like Sabbathy stoner Doom I can handle without it. Just it gets like, you know, tired after a while. But like
same,
the more you dig into the genre, and especially bands like Disembowelment, I mean, they're all over the place, but like it's just such imaginative stuff. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that you could do that. And yeah, some other bands like that. And like even when I play like clean stuff on my own, like I always just want to play slow. Like I just want chords to ring out forever. Like I want it like I just want like I just want big shimmering chords like forever. And that's like it's like all I want to do. So this band is great for that because I can just do that. Sick.
Yeah, especially the new songs that you wrote. Some of those shimmering chords, just you know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A lot of that.
Yeah, let some of that stuff really hang, and it's nice. And it's just like
awesome.
The thing that really works too, though, is that the vocals, like, you know, it's heavy music, and the vocals are guttural, but they're not. They don't grate on you. They're not assaulting. Like they're not harsh. Like there's like a level of clarity, and then like the sibilance or whatever you want to call it, and it just like it meshes with everything just so well. It's like
I want it to be like pleasant, you know what I mean? Like to kind of accompany the music. I mean, I still want it to be emotive. I still want it to be you know, to be intense, you know, especially in certain places. But like, yeah, you're right. I definitely don't want it to come off as grating or annoying. Like that is not the purpose of the band. You know, maybe some people feel that way, but that's not the purpose of the band.
No,
I agree with that. And I wonder, like, do you guys think that people, I don't want to say outside of metal, but people that aren't super into it, you know, could kind of fall in love with this band, or like, especially like this newer album, being that it's firmly in there, but it's also pretty not.
There's definitely something to be had. I feel like maybe it probably appeals more to metal fans who don't like death metal than non-metal fans, right? Like that makes the most sense, but I'm sure there's something to be had. I mean, I play it for some of the non-metal people in my life, and they find a lot of merit in it. I had my lifelong friend over last week, and I remember I played him the first record before it came out when my apartment was still empty. And now he came over last weekend, and I was like, well, let me play you the new one. I hadn't seen him in a while. And he was like, he was really into it because he's like, it's super cinematic, and the flow, and it has all this tension and release, and he's like, and all the solos like make me feel like I'm in the movie Manhunter, and he's like, that's the best part. And I was like, okay, great, because like all my solos are just cop drama solos, and kind of my thing. But
because I think
go on.
Well, I was gonna say, I think back to like being a little bit younger and showing a lot of people a band like Opeth, you know, where it's like it's death metal, but it's also pretty appealing. I mean, you kind of have to be able to get past the vocals, obviously, and something similar with this.
Yeah,
if you're not used to that, it's going to be
that's
weird.
A barrier. I think the vocals is a barrier for a lot of people that aren't metal people. But yeah, anyways, I'm sorry.
But I think back to Opeth though, and I mean, I remember people kind of like, they would get used to it, and they'd be like, yeah, I get this now. And I don't know, I guess I can just kind of seeing it fit for the right people that are kind of, maybe they know a little bit about it, but it's not their thing fully. But anyway, it's just a side question.
I think it helps if there's something like the heavy vocals can be tolerated if the rest of the music is not like death metal. I mean, I think death metal is a super engaging style of music, but it's also, you know, it can be abstract, it can be harsh, like it can be ugly. So the ugly vocals on top of like ugly music is too much for someone. But if you have like a more like conventional melodic song, but with like ugly vocals, for lack of a better way of putting it, like there's less to have to feel like you're tolerating, maybe. But I mean, Opeth have that one record, Damnation. It's all clean. I play that at work all the time, and people like it.
Same here.
Yeah, like I wish they made more records like that. I mean, I love their other stuff, but that record is fucking.
It's pretty special.
That's the good. That's the good shit.
Yeah.
I definitely thought about that record when working on the new Dream Unending.
Yeah, I can hear that for sure.
But to get us on kind of back on track, we record the record, and it's probably I record everything on my end in March of 2021, and then you do your vocals. That was in like March, April, I guess.
Yep, I finished I think first week of April.
And now I can't remember. Was I trying to send you new song ideas before you were done recording vocals?
I don't think before I was done recording vocals, but like definitely before we had a mix of Tide.
Before we had a mix, like, well, we were waiting and I was bored, so I was like, I'm gonna just start working on new stuff.
Yeah, I was like, brother,
that's
like
wild.
This is cool, but like you gotta slow your roll, you know?
Impossible.
Yeah,
this is what I do.
Yeah, no, evidently.
Apparently. But then, yeah, and then the record comes out. It's, what's funny too is like you start writing a new record. Well, I start writing a new record before the first record comes out, which clearly shows that like there's a part of me that's like almost like I don't care what anyone has to say or think about this album. I don't need feedback to help me color the next record. You know what I mean? It's like I've scrutinized it enough myself, but I've also been beyond excited off it, where it's like I'm motivated to make more, but I'm motivated to try to push myself and push my writing and whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I was looking. Oh, go on.
You I mean, I'm going to say right now, you definitely had what would become Song of Salvation. That was done before the record, before Tide was released to the public. Like straight up. I remember that.
I know, it's kind of crazy. I remember sending it to you and you're like, wow, this is better than the record. And it's not even done. It's like, well, we'll see what happens. And then, but yeah, it's just like, I mean, I had this like real luxury of time after the record was done. I mean, I was working, but I was living at home with my mom. So I would just on my days off and on my nights, I would just kind of sit in the basement and just play guitar. And it was a nice thing. It was like I really fell in love with playing guitar again during the pandemic. And I think that really helped, especially the first record, was just playing so much and then having all these ideas and kind of like piecing it all together. But then the Song of Salvation is just an extension of that. It's just an extension of like, well, I'm not having band practice with Tomb Mold, and I'm waiting to hear what this record's going to sound like. So I might as well occupy my time. And it was also fun because I had the 12-string guitar, but I didn't ever really write on the 12-string for Tide. It was sort of like I had these riffs in mind and I'll just kind of play them on the 12-string. So, big parts of the record were built on the 12-string for Song of Salvation. Like, I mean, the intro to that album is like the first thing I wrote for the record. So I didn't write the album in order, but like I started with the first song. Like the first song on the record is the first thing I wrote for it, I guess.
So you guys did not ever sit down and say like, this is what we liked about the first one, we want to use this for the next one. It just started happening right after it.
I guess so. I mean, we definitely highlighted things. We're like, that's good, or like, that's good. But I think for me, it was more so like, how do I make a natural extension to the record? But I don't want it to sound like Tide, but I want it to. That's the making a sophomore album is always like an interesting thing. I guess it's funny because like with Tomb Mold, I feel like our sophomore record was a lot of people's like first record hearing us.
Yeah. So
which is interesting. But for a band like this, like I mean, and you know what, that could be every band though. Like, this Song of Salvation could be a lot of people's first Dream Unending record. But in my head, I'm just like, there's a lot of things I like about it, but it's like, how do I improve upon that? And like, I think the first thing I really thought about was I want the record to be like going kind of full steam ahead within the first 90 seconds. Whereas like Tide takes like 4 or 5 minutes to hit a heavy chord, I think.
Probably. Yeah.
So
yeah, something like that.
I was like, we can't do that again. Like we can't do like the long drawn out intro. So it's like, let's just hit it like almost right away.
Yep.
So like I thought the 12-string intro was like kind of immediately grabs you. It's not just a chord ringing out, like it's something actually being played and like arpeggiated a bit. And then I think the heavy guitars come in within the first minute of the record. I can't remember.
Like, yeah, I think they do within at least the first minute 30 seconds.
And I guess with that song, it was like, all right, I'm gonna grab you and I'm not gonna let go for like at least a solid 6 or 7 minutes. Like I'm gonna throw a lot at you before you get like a break. And then like the break being like the clean break, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then, but then also I didn't really set out to write, 14 or 16-minute songs, but I just sort of stop where I feel like there's a natural conclusion. But I never know when that is going to hit. It just sort of happens.
Yeah. Cause on the first one, what was the longest? Maybe
11, right?
Okay.
Was Dream
Something
Unending
like
the longest song on the record? I think so.
Yeah, I believe it is.
And
you're up to what, 16 on this one?
Yeah,
the last track?
Static Rain is 16 minutes, which is ridiculous. So it's like I didn't want to write longer songs. I don't think I did, but I did. So then, and in some ways, it makes the record even more not impenetrable, but for the average listener, like you throw someone a 16-minute song, they're like, I'm not actually going to listen to it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna skim ahead. So then it becomes this thing that is, I don't know. I don't want to say that it feels more sacred, but it's like the people who listen to the whole thing, like they'll get something out of it, and then like that. I think that's enough for me. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. What about you, Justin? Was there things where you were like going into the new one that you were like, I want to amp this up or dial this down or focus on this?
Not really, because I had full faith in Derrick. I mean, I always did, but at that point, I was like, you know what? I might just like get out of this dude's way and just let him do his thing. You know what I mean?
Let him cook. Let him cook.
Yeah, totally. Because the stuff that he was sending, like I said, the first thing I got from this new session was pretty much a complete song of salvation, right? I mean, like at least the first the first 12 track? Minutes or something. Yeah, I think so, right?
I think I had the whole thing lined up, and I think I had the solo even written in that song for the most part.
It was when you presented it to me, it was pretty developed, and I was like, shit. I was like, I think I like this more than anything that's on Tide, and I probably told you that at the time.
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, and actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had written this long song. I don't know if that was your intention, but it just so happened. And then the idea was like, well, you know what? Like, let's write another long song, and that'll be the record. Like, it'll just be two, side A, side B. It'll be one song each. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember that was my idea.
Right.
And then I think the next thing I wrote was Ecstatic Rain, like another long song.
Yeah, it was, because we had the two songs, the two long ones ready to go.
Yeah. But I think that one happened more in shifts. Like I feel like I didn't have the full thing written on the first pass.
You're right. You didn't. I remember we debated the beginning a little bit. Like the beginning.
I changed the first, like the riff that has like the start and stop feel to it. You said you need to change that because it's a no warning riff.
Yeah, it sounded like right. It sounded like ill blood or something. Like,
it's not like Behind These Walls or something.
Yeah, you're right.
And I was like, oh fuck, you're right. And then I wrote something else, and then it was fine. But I think like that one, I remember that one. I feel like happened like in thirds. Like I remember writing a third of it. I remember writing the second third, and then I remember writing like the back of it, and that one I thought was really good. I still do. That one hits a lot of stuff, and I like that. Like that's the thing. Like making long songs is like, how do you if someone's actually gonna commit, like you have to hopefully keep them engaged. So these songs they don't have a lot of parts that repeat. I think like Song of Salvation, a riff never comes back, and only one riff in Ecstatic Rain comes back, and then it comes back in with like a dual solo. So it's like.
It's kind of not the same part, yeah.
Not at all. And it has dual solo, dual vocals with you and Max.
That's right.
And that was sick.
Yep.
But
I have that written down, like how you keep someone's attention for that long, and I actually have that written down too, like the lack of any kind of repeating aspects. There's nothing that gets boring about it, and really it makes you want to listen to it, repeatedly.
Well, that's the hope.
Because you have to figure it out, because it's not like you're getting hit over the head with the same, repeating line or chorus or whatever. And I mean, to me, that's what helps to keep it interesting. But is there any other tricks that you're using to like take the listener on that ride and keep you for that whole 16 minutes?
I think it's that. I think it's just the whole, like, you have this, like, what, like, well, let's use Ecstatic Rain as an example, right? Like, I sort of view that song, like, as, I sort of view the long songs as like, breathing in and out, like an inhale, like holding your breath, and then finally like exhaling. So I feel like the first few minutes of that is like a slow, like you're holding your breath, and then by the time we hit the clean break, where my friend McKenna sings, that's like the first exhale, and then I'm trying to like I'm like, okay, well, I want to build the tension back up, and I think that is like what makes music exciting is like the constant like push and pull, or like the tension and release of music, like where is this gonna go, and like what is like, how does this conclude, and things like that. And I think also, just like trying to create a song with movement that is, but not without like having to ever really change the speed that much. That's like a lot of prog songs, like they just get crazier, right? But like you can't really get crazy with doom music. I mean, you can, but like we're not gonna pick up the pace or anything. So it's like it's just like trying to find flow and creating structure. I don't know how it comes about. I just sort of it's the byproduct of just like sitting on your chair for like an hour playing riffs or ideas, right? And then being like, oh, I think I've stumbled onto something. Let me piece this together. And then thinking, well, I had this other riff that I had come up with a couple of days ago. Can I somehow mesh this all in? And that's sort of how it is. Also, just the benefit of being able to sit and just demo stuff on my computer and like listen back, take it with me like on a train ride, and like think about what I've worked on, and then be like, well, where do I want to go from here? And then maybe I'm listening to music, and then there's something that hits me where it's like, oh, something like that would be cool. And then not exactly writing that, but being like, I want to capture how that makes me feel. Like the clean break in Song of Salvation, the one where it has like the guitar solo, and then the solo helps like transition back into the heavy part. Like that whole thing is just like, I love the song Lightning Crashes by Live, but how do I take that feeling and put it into a song? And that's like my attempt at it. Do you know what I mean? So that doesn't answer the question at all, but it's like, just goes back to like constantly chasing a feeling and just seeing how far I can take it. And for now, 16 minutes is as far as I want to take it, I guess.
Yeah, well, it works. That's for sure my favorite song on the album, man. It's like such a good closer.
I think so.
So you got these two long ones written, and then you decide to have the two kind of instrumental tracks in the middle.
Yeah.
What made you go with that?
Well, I think first, I'm trying to remember. Justin, maybe you can help me. What came first, Unrequited or Secret Grief?
Oh man, I don't. I think. I don't know. Oh man,
I think Secret Grief. I think Secret Grief came first.
You sure? I don't remember.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Oh, you might be right, actually.
Because I remember working on it. Because I remember I had moved into where I'm living now, and there's no AC in my apartment, so I had like a portable unit in my room, and my apartment was so fucking hot, like it was disgusting. I'm on the top floor of a house, so I moved all my stuff into the bedroom because I was just living alone, waiting for my wife's immigration, like permanent residence to clear. So I would just sit in my room and watch Star Trek Next Generation episodes, and then like work on music because I had like a fold out table with like all my shit on it. And I remember starting to write Secret Grief. And then I was like, well, I guess it's not going to be a 2-song record. And then that's when I guess we changed the whole like structure of the album. And I was like, okay, We're going to make like a full 45-minute affair or whatever.
Yeah, I was fine with that.
Yeah. And then I think Unrequited was an instrumental where, well, that one changed a couple times, but that was one where I sent it to you with like a drum loop to try to help, like, because I was like, I have an idea for like an instrumental that is like clean based. So I was like, so I'm going to send it to you with drums so you can kind of like understand like the vibe I'm going for. And then so then for a long time we just had the 4 songs. And I kind of like tinkered away at those. I wrote solos pretty late in the game for those ones. Because another thing I started doing once I moved was I started taking guitar lessons again. And that was a thing that for me, like really helped shift like how I felt about playing, how I felt about writing, and just like my overall confidence. Like really quickly after, it's just like, I think it was like the rush of realizing like I could actually get better at my instrument. And then being like,
you can hear it, man. I mean, like the solo on Unrequited
that's the like
is something
like,
else.
My
man.
bandmate and Tumo Payson was like, "That's my favorite solo you've written." I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
Oh
like,
yeah,
that's a good one.
It's wild.
And that was the first
it's one of those. Every time I hear it, it's like it hits you every time.
Yeah, like
it's I don't know, man. It's hard to explain it, but
it's like that thing where like I was saying, where it's like sometimes you hear something and it like hits you right in the chest. It's like that's what I wanted from that. It's like this. It's like the song. I always reference this song, but like the song "Who's Crying Now" by Journey, like the solo in that song is like incredible.
Yeah, okay,
that one, super simple, but like when you hear it, you're just like, ouch, man. You're like, that hurts.
That's a good one.
It's amazing. So then, my teacher, his name's Kevin Hoofnagel. He plays in Dysrhythmia. He plays in Gorguts. He has a new band called Veltune. He used to be in Sabbath Assembly. Like, just learning from him was like has been such a positive experience. And it was just a thing where it kind of forced me to start playing again, but like more like critically, like actually like working on stuff like to better my playing. You know what I mean? Not just I'm just gonna play for the sake of playing, like being a little bit more like critical. And I just, being so inspired from like the lessons and stuff. That's when I wrote the solo for Unrequited. That's when I wrote the solo for Secret Grief. And those two really come out. And like, him and I would bounce ideas off the kind of like the weird solo in Ecstatic Rain, where Max does some vocals as well. And like, he was like, why don't you just like write like 2 solos, like write 2 guitars playing together and see where that takes you. And like, I loved it, and it was fun, and it was a challenge.
He was right.
He was right, and it was a challenge, and it was sick. And so it was like a thing where, it if anything, like it just really like made me feel like, I can get better. And that was like, that's a nice feeling. I don't know, like if you hit stagnation with something, and then you can either kind of give into it and just be like, this is it, like this is who I am, or you can sort of like just push yourself to hit a higher level of something, right? And so for me, like Dream Unending in a nutshell is that, because you were intimidated doing drums. Like, man, I didn't know how the fuck I was going to record all those guitars. Like, I was like, this is going to be a disaster, but like I pulled it off. I was impressed by myself. Like, it was daunting. I know people do this all the time. Like, people have like their projects where they do everything, but I was like, I'm not cut out for that, but I guess I figured it out.
Yeah. And let me reiterate the point that like, for me, there was a lot of uncertainty going into that first record. You know what I mean? Like drums, like I said, with drums, I had Arthur, so I knew that we would get through it. But vocals, I was on my own, because I recorded the vocals myself, like in my closet. You know what I mean? And like that, and plus, at the time, it was a very intense, kind of moment in my life. Like, I don't know, man. I didn't think I was gonna get through it, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, no, I remember.
It was tough. So when I finally heard like the mix of like the first mix of Tide, like I almost cried, because I was like, I can't believe that we did it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like,
no,
like,
dude, it was
like we made it happen, and it sounds good. Like I just couldn't believe it. You know what I mean?
No,
like
it was crazy. Like I remember we got the first mix, and I remember I was at work, and I was like, I don't want to listen to it till I get home, because like I only have like these crappy like earbuds on me. I don't want to ruin the experience. But then I remember getting home, and I remember like sitting in my mom's backyard, like on her deck, which like a lilac tree hangs over. It was like the perfect spring evening. And I was listening to that on like my like nice Sennheiser headphones. And then I remember like I'd sent the first mix to Dave from 20 Bucks Spin as well. So I'm listening to it, but I'm getting messages from him telling me that he likes it a lot and stuff. And yeah, I was just like, holy shit, like we actually did it. It was a nice feeling, especially like, yeah, like it was it was like really venturing into the unknown. We never had a band practice. Like
Right.
I had no idea
that's the other thing.
Sound like. Like it was crazy, but it was great.
Yeah, could have been a disaster, but
it could have been. But
I'll tell you what though, like going into song, I felt way more confident because I was like, "Fucking, if we could make Tide happen, then like we can do this again." Like we had a game plan and the game plan worked. So like let's just you know what I mean? Like we can do this.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like that. It sounds like you guys are just like, I know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. Let's push this stuff even further. Totally. It's like super confident, you know. Yeah. Everything's better. I mean, it sounds completely like that.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like, yeah, it was just like another, like, I mean, I guess I had, you know, like from like the momentum of making Tide and then just having a bunch of ideas and the time to work on it. Like I felt really good going into it, but also I felt better about my guitar playing. I think you probably felt better about your drumming. I think you probably felt like you were more at like your regular strength because like your back wasn't bugging you or anything.
Yep.
And so it just felt stronger. Like it just felt like, oh, it's like the first record, but there's like muscle added to it or something. You know what I mean? Like, but I remember I need more time. Like I was throwing so much at the songs that I was like, I am not going to, like, I need more time to do it this time. So I think I did it. I think I started on a Thursday and ended by a Sunday. So it's like, I needed a full extra day, but it was a lot, man. Like I have this awesome custom guitar that, my friend Tony, who plays in that band Inoculation, made me. And it's this crazy looking red guitar, but I had it sort of designed so that it would sound good heavy, but as well clean. So I used it on a lot of like the clean tones on the record were sculpted by that guitar. But because, you know, he had made it, didn't have a ton of time to QC it and shipped it off to me, it was still a little bit of a work in progress. So like, you know, like the metal fret bars on a guitar, they weren't like 100% filed down. So as I was playing it over the weekend, I noticed that my fretting hand was going red and it was like getting like irritated by the metal bars. So then like my hand was sore and like tender and it like hurt to play the guitar. So I remember like by like Saturday, I was like, I'm in pain playing, but like we still have to like finish the album. So then like Secret Grief, that I didn't use that guitar on it, which was actually like a good thing because this is like a dumb nerd note, but all the songs are drop C sharp half step down from standard tuning, except for Secret Grief, which is just drop D standard tuning. But if you play a guitar with like a locked floating bridge, like a Floyd Rose or like a Schaller or whatever, you need to actually bust open the back, adjust the springs if you're going to tune it for something different. So it was sort of, okay, we're going to record all these songs first, then we're going to record Secret Grief last because I have to like reset my guitars. But I didn't reset the red guitar my buddy made me, which was a good thing because then I still had one in the main tuning to go back over a couple little parts. But yeah, I remember it chewed my hand up, and by that point, like I still had to track bass for all the songs. I still had to finish one song, so it was like a painful experience, like literally, because like my hand was fucked. But I got through it, and I feel like a dick for saying it like that because like I'm not mad at Tony, like you know these things happen. But luckily I had a few things on me. But yeah, I remember like that recording, it was easier going in because it was like, all right, we know exactly what to set up. We know exactly how to like tackle the songs. The only thing I did differently was I left bass till the very, very end for all the songs. Which was good because it's just like when you're in the flow of like playing guitar a lot, it's just easier to stick with it as opposed to like switch to an instrument where the neck is a different size, for me at least.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then, yeah, it was just working with Sean at Boxcar is so easy for me. It's like Justin working with Arthur. It's just like, it's so comfortable and familiar. And Sean and I just understand each other and speak a certain language and we just crank it out. And we both have like the same sort of like, you know, we're very patient. We're very chill. And we just sit there for hours, get stoned, and I just play guitar. He just hits, start, stop, go back. So then I think like, I mean, by the time we recorded the record, had the first record actually shipped to people?
Like the vinyl itself?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't think so, man. I think the vinyl came out in February.
And we recorded in February. Right? Yeah. Like
I think I tracked drums. I tracked drums in January.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
And I did it. It was like basically as people were getting their record, I think we were like on the cusp of listening to a first mix. I feel.
Yeah, because we got the first mix rather quick. I remember I had a little bit of a snag where a lot of the lyrics that I had written just didn't fit with the songs. So I actually redid and rewrote a lot of the lyrics, and I would say, oh yeah, dude. I don't know if I told you that before, but yeah. So a lot of it didn't work. So I would say it took me about 2 weeks to write and record the vocals. To write lyrics and record the vocals. I did it, pretty fast because I was already had known the songs and were familiar with them. But yeah, that was kind of a crazy process.
Jeez.
Did that change like the themes of the album, or was it just more like the specific lyrics you were going with?
Yeah, the specific, like I just kind of had to articulate them a different way. I had a vision anyways, like an idea of what I wanted to say. With most of the songs anyway. So yeah, I just had to kind of retool them. Is
the themes, the lyrics, is that something that you want to go into at all, or leave it up to the,
I'm happy to talk about it. I think we kind of always had like a pretty clear idea of like what this band is about, or like what we're looking for. I mean, it's tricky because like we play. I feel like our themes or our vibe or like whatever, they're like somewhat in step with Doom, but they're way more, I guess, optimistic, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, for me, like Dream Unending just feels like a search for like joy in some ways. Like it's just like the joy of being alive, like the joy of like finding meaning in your life, and like that sort of like that quest of just like finding your place in this world and like learning to be comfortable with yourself and all that kind of stuff. And I always felt like your lyrics reflected that stuff, or at least that's what I took from it. That's what I took from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, we're not a band that's afraid about talking about love either,
Oh, fuck no. For better or worse. I mean, most of the stuff, like I mean, especially like the clean parts, I always felt like really help bring into focus what it is. Especially like the Richard Poe spot on the new record. The lyrics that McKenna sings in Ecstatic Rain, they just kind of build off like what you're doing. And I mean, Secret Grief is like the heartbreaky song. Then that and Unrequited are like the heartbreaky songs of the record.
Fair enough. Right.
Yeah. Like, especially with Phil singing Secret Grief. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's like par for the course,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like having all that stuff, like we had all that stuff basically ready once we were done. I feel like, we didn't have to wait on anything. Like we really I think we were really motivated to get it out this year too. Like, you know what I mean? I think definitely. I think Dave from 20 Bucks Spin had told us, like, if you have everything by this day, everything can come out this year. And I think that kind of like lit a fire under us. And then we had to sort of light that fire under everybody else, and everybody else did. Like everybody else came through in like a big way. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Props to everyone involved who made that happen. I think Dave said, "Listen, if you have everything March 1st, we can make it happen." Right? Yeah, you say something like that.
Basically,
but we were ready to go by what, second, third week of February. You know what I mean? We
had it quick. Like we got everything. Like, and that's the other thing too, is like you're playing like this game of like kind of like back and forth. Like, Justin will do his stuff, and then I need to make sure that I get it in time to go record it with Sean at Boxcar, and then I have to wait on Sean to get it back to Arthur, and then it was like, and getting all the extra stuff right, because we have my dad playing the keyboard and piano on the record, so that's all got to be there. We got Phil and McKenna singing spots. We got Richard Poe doing a spoken thing, and then my friend Layla Abdul-Rauf, who plays in Vastum and does her own solo stuff. She played trumpet on Secret Grief, but all that stuff, like we had it just all in check.
And don't forget about Max. Max was probably the last guy. Yeah,
that was the last guy. Yeah, Max was the last one because I feel like he needed to hear your vocals in order to track his stuff.
Right.
And then he was pumped because he's like, "Oh, it's good to know I can still do this," because we hadn't done anything in so long. So he hadn't done any like guttural vocals in a long time, and that was like, I guess around that time is like when Tumult would have started making the aperture of body tape, or like kind of like easing into it. So for him, he was like, "Oh, it was a big boost." Like for
I remember him telling me he was like, "Dude, if it sounds crappy, just scrap it. Like, don't worry about it." And I was like, "Nah, man. Like, it sounds great. Like, trust me. Like, it's all good, dude. Trust me."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then we just it's making a record's funny because like it seems easy, but there's so many moving parts. I think the thing that really helps our speed though is that it's so streamlined between the players, right? Because it's just Justin and I for the most part. And I think we both share a certain killer instinct to get shit done. So we just don't sit on things. Like we just are like, "Oh, we have this. Let's just do it. Like let's just do it."
How did you guys decide on all like the guest vocals? I mean, I know you brought back some, obviously your dad.
Yeah.
And you said McKenna did the cleans, but you got Phil in on this one, and I mean the added trumpets, which is just like super cool. Like where do those ideas come from?
I think Secret Grief is like, I mean, the first half of that song is sort of like my love letter to the band The Blue Nile. Like I love their song. Like, I mean, I love a lot of their songs, but they have this one song, Let's Go Out Tonight, and it's got like piano, and I think it's got some trumpet. And I was like, that'd be cool to do, but like I can't sing like Paul Buchanan. I don't have enough like gravitas in my voice to really convey anything. And I mean, Justin and Phil are friends, and I like Phil's voice, and so Justin kind of put that together. Okay. But I think like I kind of like you facilitated the whole thing. Like I wrote lyrics and I kind of showed a bit of a vocal outline, but I was like, Phil can do whatever he wants, And he delivered pretty easily, I would say. There was
he definitely delivered.
There were no notes to be had. He did it. Like, and it was so great though. I just felt like he really brought life to the song, but like I feel like the vocal performance he gave us, it was just like, oh, this is really good. Just felt like a little different than everything I've heard by him. And
totally.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's him, but it's unique.
No, he was really psyched to do it. He was happy to do it, to do something that was a little different too. That's something that wouldn't be considered his the Phil Swanson wheelhouse. He was pretty psyched on that.
Yeah. And I was, he
always wanted to do other stuff,
That for sure. I remember hitting him up after and just being like, man, like thank you so much. Like I'm such a fan, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, this was great. Like, it's nice to not do heavy metal. And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, that's good to know. And so that was great. And then I think I kind of floated the trumpet idea to you though, but like kind of showing you, like, I remember like I showed you that video of that guy David Torn playing with that band where Bill Bruford's playing drums and there's like a guy playing trumpet. It's super like verbed out. And I was like, oh, we could do something cool like that. And then I knew Layla played trumpet and she like crushed it in like 5 minutes, I think. Like I sent her she was amazing. Yeah, like I sent her the melody idea and she was just like, cool. And then like I think like a day or two later, she's like, here you go. I was like, perfect. She's like, do you need me to change anything? I was like, nope. It's like, yeah. It's just, and that's the thing that makes the band so sick, is just like how many like awesome people I know that are willing to like, pitch in and help out. Like
your dad, dude, killed it again. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, that's so awesome.
Man, when he comes in, he has this like, hits this like pad synth in like the final clean break of Ecstatic Rain as it opens up, and it just sounds like Terminator 2. And it's like, the fucking greatest. And that stuff, like,
I feel like he could have a thing going, man, with like other bands. We could start seeing, I forget his first name, but something
Dave,
on like
Dave,
other.
but like,
Yeah.
he like, yeah, well, I'm so blessed because he's just like, he's like a synth and like MIDI guy. So he's got every sound at his disposal, right? So I can just hit him up and be like, can you give me organ? And he's like, yeah. And then I'm like, can you give me this? Cool. He's like, yep. He's like, can I have this? He's like, yep. I'm like, oh, great. The only thing I wanted real trumpet. I didn't want a MIDI trumpet because I needed the real feel of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think MIDI trumpet might have sounded like some of those like interludes on like the first Nile record or like the Blessed Are the Sick, where it's like very very fucking cheesy. I love that, but it's I love that cheese, but like that's the kind of like we're going for a different kind of cheese. I think not that kind of cheese.
I feel that.
Yeah. And then so we're like we're gonna have 2 records in 2 years, and just like that, ain't no thing. It's crazy.
It's wild. It's wild. What about? Well, so I know we've talked a bunch of times just about like the differences of it, and I know you asked me one time like, do you think we topped the first one? And I mean, at the time I was like, I think, but I don't know. I mean, I really liked the first one, and then like now it's an easy decision to say like this one is definitely better. But I know you were saying one time like you weren't sure. You were just kind of like, I don't know if this is one that's going to like necessarily make a bunch of new fans, but it should, like, people who like it should really like it.
Well, I think
like,
it feels a little. I mean, like Doom records like this, like they feel a little daunting, not because they're long, but it's sort of like if it was like 8 4-minute songs, I might feel differently. But like asking someone to commit to like a 14-minute track is hard. Or like a 60-minute track. But if you like the first record, it's like, oh, well, then this is for you. You know what I mean? But
that
like,
makes sense.
And I don't mind that. Like that's fine. And if new people are attracted by it, like that's great. But like at the end of the day, it's for us more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it almost has like a reverse flow to the record where it starts off intense, like you have basically 19 minutes of like song, right? Like of heavy music, like of between Song and Secret Grief. And then the record kind of like calms down a bit, right? You have Murmur of Voices, and then you have Unrequited. But it was interesting. Someone was talking to me and they're like, the record is almost like thirds, where you have like those first 2 songs, and then you have like the interlude and the instrumental, and then you have like the last song. I was like, yeah, that's fair. Except if you listen to it on record, it'll be like first 3 songs on one side and then Unrequited and Ecstatic Rain on the other. So it's like it's a different sort of experience. And like I've never listened to it like that because the record was sort of designed to almost flow as like one big piece without being one long song.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
It feels that way for sure.
But
I mean, I get what you're saying though. Like it does feel like 3 movements, but it's very connected.
So then I wonder what the sensation is like for like someone listening to it on record versus CD, let's say. You know what I mean? Where a CD plays continuously, whereas a record you have to actually actively flip.
Well, I've been listening to it on Dropbox a lot because I never inputted it fully. And so like when Murmur ends, it is a bit, it's like you can feel something's coming. So it's just more like you're just ready to flip it over. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like it does feel like it's just like it's going right into that.
I just didn't want to like do something where, like if you buy the album Dope Smoker on vinyl, every side kind of fades out with part of the album and then has to kind of fade back in. I didn't want that so much. Like I wanted side A to fade out with like just the ambience of Murmur of Voices. Like I didn't want it to fade out with like the intro kind of like solo piece from Unrequited. I wanted that to be like, that's going to start side B. You know what I mean? I didn't want it to be teased on side A, and we didn't do that or anything like that. But, and Murmur of Voices came in super late in the process. Like maybe like the month before we recorded.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that was a fun one because then I just like was like, well, this is an easy way to get like a bunch of friends on the record. I like hit up a bunch of people. I was like, hey, will you send me like an iPhone recording of you like whispering this? And like a couple people sent me like something better than an iPhone recording, but it was just like a fun way to like get a bunch of people I like on the record. It's like my bandmate Payson, some friends. Some people
cool.
Justin knows. Yeah, it was just like a fun little thing, and it adds like an extra layer of like ambiance to the song, and kind of like we highlight a few key lines at the end that like kind of are more focused rather than the rest, which is just a blur. And I kind of got the idea because I had been watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine with my wife, and the subtitle in the early seasons when they'll like have a scene of like the hallway or something, the subtitle will be murmur of voices to sort of describe like just the chatter that you hear.
Okay.
I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I was like, oh, I'll use that. So that's what it's from.
That's cool. That was
a fun thing. Yeah. But like everything just came together so well. And it's the benefit of working with people who just know what they're doing. And sometimes just people having their own idea and sort of putting their own spin on it. Like when McKenna sent me her vocals, she sent me a harmony track as well. And I was like, I didn't ask for that, but it was a great idea. Like, I just was like, how did I not think of that? And it just adds another dimension to that part, and it makes it more impactful. And that's like, it's like, I feel like that's what we're always going for. It's just like, we'll make a record that has like a bunch of key moments and something that like, so at least you're walking away with something, you know what I mean? Because yeah, like, how do you make slow music engaging? I feel like that's the question I'm always asking myself. I feel like that's like what I'm asking myself when I'm writing for the band. And I'm still looking for the answer, but I feel like I'm on the right track. So, you know, I'll just roll with it.
Are you going to try and do the 3 in a row thing, or are you going to chill for a minute?
I mean, we'll see. We gotta, I mean, I'm always good to write. So if I write, we'll just make something and find a way. We'll always find a way. But yeah. I mean, like this, I mean, you know, I think Justin and I both just like making music, right? So.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Just make as much as possible. I mean, Justin's on a roll right now. This is the big year.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a wild year for you.
It's like, well, like 2 records in the same week came out, right?
Yeah.
Is it the same Friday? Yeah.
Yeah, same Friday. Yeah, crazy. Pretty crazy. Though, I mean, the thing is, though, those are records that we had been working on for a while, so, like almost pre-pandemic. Like for Summerlands, for example, like I recorded the drums pre-pandemic. So like, you know, I
remember we hung out while you were we were in Philly at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we hung out and I was like, well, when I move down here, you know, we'll start practicing. And then I never.
Yeah. Cause I remember when we were hanging out, I was like, we got to do the band. You know what I mean? Like before it was Dream Unending, we were just,
we didn't even have a name.
We didn't have a name. Yeah. I was like, we got to make this happen. So.
Oh yeah.
What was the hang up with Summerlands? Was it just because like the vocalist changed because it was done that long ago?
Yeah, vocalist changed, and then you know, Arthur's a busy guy. So Arthur was a busy guy, so he was doing his thing. He was, you know, producing a lot of records, and Summerlands was just kind of on the back burner for a while. But once we got Brendan locked in, you know, it kind of came together. You know, rather fast. So, but that took time, you know?
Yeah.
When do you remember when he would have done his vocals?
He did his vocals probably not too long ago. Like, within the past year.
Yeah.
You know, I was actually surprised that the record came out. So I mean, I know we're supposed to be talking about Dream Unending, but just real quick, I was surprised that Summerlands came out so soon after we had finished it, you know, because I figured it was going to be a year or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Did Phil ever do vocals for it, or was it all just fresh when he came in?
No, Phil had done some demos of songs that we recorded, but he had told us by late I think maybe late 2019 that he didn't want to do the band anymore. So,
right.
Yeah. I was so scared. I was like, I don't with this new one coming out. And then I was obviously easily put at ease once it started.
He killed it.
Yeah. I mean, I love Phil, and Phil is amazing, but Brendan is awesome too. You know, Brendan is pretty incredible vocalist. And I know there's going to be people that prefer Phil, and that's totally fine. I respect their mind. That's all good. But Brendan was awesome. You know,
they can listen to, you know, you can listen to your other band, Solemn Lament. He sings.
That's true. That is true.
Get your Phil fix there.
Yep.
He'll find his way on some other records, I bet.
Yeah. You know, Phil is going to do his thing. And like, even when he tells me, he's like, I'm done with music. This is it. Like, that's not true.
No,
hopefully not.
He's done when we say he's done.
Totally.
Well, you got to touch on numeral forms too, because you know, I loved the previous LP, but I was just talking to a friend, like, just, you know, trying to decide. Somebody was like, you like it better than the one before, and I really do. I feel like this one's like another like big step up, like the feeling that you threw in there on this one, and the added, you know, to me, I mean, I haven't listened to a bunch, but the couple times I've listened to it,
it's amazing, man. It's a terrific record.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Kind of blew me away. Yeah,
I really like it. I like it better than the other one is cool. Respect to everyone who was involved in the first one, but to me, this one I like much more. You know, songwriting, especially the performance. I'm pretty happy with it. I gotta say, like a lot of times I can't listen to my own shit because it's just there's too many flaws. I just can't do it. But like I listen to this one, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like I think we did a good job. I'm pretty happy with it. So I don't know if people agree. You know, it's a tough band because it's a lot of misery. It's a lot of slow parts. It's a lot of like ugly upon ugly. I understand why it wouldn't be attractive to people, but like we made the record that we wanted to make for sure. You know. So
it's the same lineup though, right?
Same lineup, right?
Same lineup.
The only difference is that I didn't play. I didn't touch the guitar on this one. Like I played rhythm guitar on the last record, but I
okay.
But I didn't. Only thing I did on this record was sing.
Right.
So even with the writing and everything,
no, I still I was still involved in the writing for sure. Like me, Jensen, and Chris probably did a third each of the writing. You know, maybe a little bit more here or there, but yeah, no. All I did was sing.
What's that song? Thrall?
Oh, yeah, Thrall.
That's Chris's best solo he's recorded.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Good. I think I told him that. I think we talked about it because I was like,
"Oh, cool,
that's the one." I was like, "That's the one, man."
Yeah, I like that one a lot. To me, that was like, that's my favorite one on the record. Like that one feels like us, like kind of doing our own thing. You know what I mean? 'Cause I feel like there's not a lot of like bands are doing something like that. So at least like within our, you know, our sub genre. So I'm pretty happy with that one.
Well, like you have a good mix of tempo even for like a death doom band. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's the thing that really swings the record in like a forward and like good direction, is like for a death doom band, it never feels, it doesn't drag. You know what I mean? Some records drag, or they do we're slow, insert blast beat, back to slow. You know what I mean? Right. Like there's none of that shit. Like it's got good flow. It doesn't have like.
Oh no, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's not like.
Yeah, I want the songs to be dynamic. 'Cause I still think that within that genre you can still be dynamic. You know.
And the sequencing on and everything, like the way, like you said, like the tempo changes and all that, but not feeling like they're out of place, and like ending on sleep. What is it? Sleeping in light. Yeah. It just feels like such a full package album, you know.
Thanks,
like, compared to the one before. Like you can just feel that. Like, oh man, if you finish that song, you're gonna. I mean, I put it right back on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's cool. Like, you know, I really appreciate you saying that. That's awesome.
That's the song where if I was in the band, I'd be like, we have to open every set with this song.
I would love that. That's my other favorite one, you know, like I like the doomy shit, man. What can I say, you know?
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
This time of year, this is what I need right now.
Yeah,
so I came in the right time, man.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah, no, autumn is the perfect time. That's why it's like, and you know, it'll be good. This record comes out in November, so it's not going to be completely winter yet when it comes out. But always feel like autumn records to me.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was going to ask that. So I know, Derrick, we've talked. The previous album, that one for me was always like sunset kind of a listen.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's a beautiful album, This one to me, I've been putting it on more like on a rainy day. I don't know if that's just me, or maybe at night. Like, what if you were going to tell someone like, how should you listen to this? What would you say? Either of you guys.
Well,
certain headspace, certain vibe.
That's funny that you said that because my friend Trevor, who plays in Woundman, he told me he was like, yeah, I wanted to listen to Dream Unending, but like I didn't want it to start raining, so I didn't put it on. You know what I mean? And he was talking about the new record, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy has probably the best environment to listen to it when he's out on the water, right? Like that.
Exactly.
That's
Totally.
how you listen to the record because he works on a boat. So right, he works on a boat.
He sure does.
Yeah. It's like I feel like those are records you like listen to at sea, but I think the new one. Well, it's tricky for me because I wrote half of it in the winter, half of it in the summer. So it's got a lot of different things. And then I've listened to it through like almost every season.
Yeah, because we've had the record for a while, man. We've had it since February, you know?
Yeah, it is crazy. Like that's why it's like, it's funny where it's like, I feel like every time we hit the part where we have to talk about the record, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. But like, wait till you hear the next thing we do. Right.
Yeah.
And we've had so much time with it, but like, yeah, I think it's a nighttime record, I think, but I don't know. It's a rainy day record. It's a record for all seasons. How about that?
Mm-hmm,
How about that?
Mm-hmm.
But
sure, yeah.
I always just tell people, listen to it when you have like 45 minutes of like uninterrupted time. And I'm like, if you're like a drug user, take drugs first. It's like,
right.
My MO.
Yeah.
And it seems to work for people. But like, yeah, I the record really keys in on a bunch of things. Like it just like, it's for me like the way it makes me feel is like more important than like how it sounds, and it has a lot of like big moments. I feel like
oh yeah,
like when the heavy guitars come back in on like Song of Salvation, like the title track, like those are really sweet moments, and it's just like I just want to like find that it's like just a quest to find like just like joy in writing music. And I think like I get a big kick out of just like watching like bands play. Like I mean everybody does, but like the joy of just playing music together, that's been like the weird thing about like the post-pandemic world somewhat, is like, I mean, Justin, you've had the pleasure of being able to play live, but like I haven't. So but like going to shows now feels like way more of a thing where like I feel but now when I go to shows, I feel like I'm way more critical of the show itself. Where I'm like, I want to be enthralled by the band that plays, and I want them to like bring their absolute 100% best thing. So like I've experienced like both ends of the spectrum, like in the last 6 months of like good shows and bad shows. So it's like now it's like remembering how it feels to go to a show that's good is like, that's how I want to feel like when I make a record, or like that's what I want. That's the feeling I want to convey when like someone hears a record I make, is like just like I want them to hopefully like feel like enthralled by the experience. This is probably
I'm the same way, man.
This is probably the byproduct of like taking mushrooms and going to see Fish play, but like, and then just being like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Where it's like, I'm like, oh, I want that to be like how people hear records. Like that's how I want to hear every record. It's like, you know, I something that really struck me. I know I'm rambling here, but I noticed a lot of people don't have like ways to listen to music at home, like through like good speakers and stuff. And like, that's something I really like cherish and value. And that was the nice thing about like moving into this place, is setting up my turntable and like my speakers and like being able to listen to records like really loud. I'm really lucky to have neighbors who don't complain about me listening to records loud or like playing my guitar loud. Actually, they texted me tonight asking if I could play them "Smoke on the Water" from between the floors. Awesome. So I did. But and just like the experience of just like really like immersing yourself in it, like really soaking it in. I just feel like that's a thing that like I really cherish. So I just want to try to make music that like people can feel like get lost in a little. And I feel like that's like, I feel like my songs are more exploratory than ever, where it's like I'm just sort of searching for something and then trying to like kind of like find an answer. And that's why you have these like long songs that just sort of don't repeat because, you know, I guess in this like analogy where I'm searching for something, like I'm not going to find much new stuff if I go back to something previous. So it's always like trying to find the next thing, right? So I'm just trying to write something new. And I hope that it helps keep the music fresh, right? Because it's like I want I want someone to be presented with a new idea like all the time, as opposed to a rehash. That's the hope, at least.
It works, and I think that's why it took me. You know, it takes a minute. You got to listen to these songs and like really digest them, like you said, like spend some time with it, because it is exploring and going so many places. And I mean, it's complex. It's more complex than the last. It's more dense.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, it just rewards on like those extra listens, and the more you pick it out. Because I've been listening to a shit ton this week, just because before we were going to be talking about it, and not to mention just since I've gotten it, it's like it's only gotten better. You know, and I'm always afraid to play albums too many times. You know, like your favorite albums, you don't want to ruin them.
Yeah,
at least I'm like that.
I've done that.
Yeah, I hate that.
I've overplayed records, and it doesn't have the same feeling. It's so sad, you know.
Yeah, that's how
it really is.
It's funny. Like I thought about that a couple weeks ago. I listened to at work. Someone put on "The Queen Is Dead" by the Smiths, which I guess feels topical. But I was like, this is a good record, but I was like, skip the song. It's like I've heard it too many fucking times. Where it's like, I can't do this record anymore. It's like, put on this one instead, because like I haven't heard it a million times. It's like, yeah, I know that feeling, like the fear of like ruining a record because listen to it into oblivion. But
luckily, this I think lends itself much more to like really listening a lot, you know, just because of that, like.
Yeah, there's things to be discovered, right? And I mean, like, I was listening to a record today, and I feel like this is a record that really helps color, like, how I approached writing Song of Salvation, like the whole album. But the album Exuvia by Ruins of Beverest, which is, you know, I think it's a good 20 minutes longer than our record. But that's a record that, like, you know, there's a lot being thrown at you, so it's hard to remember everything. So it's a record where, like, if you listen to it enough times, it becomes more and more rewarding, right? Because you just you're stumbling upon something new. The best compliment I get from friends who listen to the album are, "I had to put it on immediately again after." Like that's the best. Like that's like
can't beat that, you know.
Can't beat that. Like that's what you shoot for, and you hope that you land somewhere in between that and it's good. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and I think you nailed it, especially because it ends on such a climax. Like it really, you know, it doesn't just fade out. It you know, you built it to the end with like ebbs and flows, but then like right at that end, it's really like there's a lot of satisfaction like coming down from that whole journey.
Yeah.
So it's like super easy to like throw it back on because it's such a high at the end of that thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that plus like, I think the like, how do I say this without like, there's almost like, there's a sensitivity to like these records, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of vulnerable, right? Because we're being very like, we're almost like speaking very plainly at times about certain things. And that seems to really connect with people. I remember like when Tide came out, I got a few people reach out to me being like, I really love your record, and like I'm really like depressed, or I've been going through a bout of depression, and like this has been like a really big help, which is like such a crazy thing for like someone to like tell me. But like I'm like, dude, that's amazing. Like, you know, I get it, because like it's like why I make music, right? Like the way I always look at life is like you kind of live with like this line that you can't see, and on like one side of the line is like the will to live, and like the other side is like the desire to just not be alive. And it's like all about like widening the gap so that like you're more on the will to live side. And like for me, like writing music is like that's it. Like it's like the thing I like to do. Like I feel like in the last couple of years I really figured out like that like living is easy, but not really. But I'm just like, well, you know, I'm in a really good spot because like my day-to-day life is not bad. I live with my wife and my dog, and then I get to like work on music. Like it doesn't get much better than that. You know what I mean? Don't have a lot of money, and I don't care. I just have enough to keep buying gear that I kind of need but don't really need, but I keep stockpiling it anyways. And I just write music, and it's just like anything I can do. And I think that's what helps motivate me to like keep working. I think that's why Justin and I work well together, because if I'm just like, here's 3 more songs, let's record them in 4 months, Justin will be like, yeah, okay. And that, like, you know, that means something. Someone that's like actually willing to like deal with like my psychosis, like that's a real beautiful thing. So it's like I'm glad I found you, Justin.
I'm glad I found you, brother. I wouldn't call your productivity a psychosis, though, you know, but
that's good. But it's just like, yeah,
it's been pretty. I mean, listen, I know this sounds, you know, sentimental, but like I'm just like, you're a talent, and I'm just blessed that we could play music together for real. You know what I mean? Like, it's been incredible. You know, like it's awesome.
Well, it's so crazy for me, man. I've been watching you play in bands for like how many fucking years, right? Like, if you told me in like 2005, it's like, hey, you and that guy on stage will make a band together, I'd be like, no way. But then, like, just the way stars align, man, here we are.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
It's kind of crazy. Like, yeah, I can, like, yeah, I've been like, I've been going to shows that you've been at, or like we've been at shows together since like 2005. Think about that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Like, how many years is that now? It's like 17.
Yeah.
Like, it's a crazy thing. And then, and it's just funny how life works. Like, it's funny how life pans out. Like, you just never know. And that's like sort of like, it's sort of the beauty of it. It's like, you never know where it's going to go. And I feel like I'm really intellectualizing Dream Unending, but like, that's like what Dream Unending is like, you don't know where it's going to go. Like, when you're listening to a song for the first time, you're like, what's going to happen? Because like, there's a lot of long Doom songs out there, but they're like 3 parts. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to like really pack in the paint here, so to speak. And
yeah.
And yeah, I love listening to records that are rewarding listens, and that's all I want to do with anything I work on. And then but then I it's also fun for me, like, yeah, like as your bandmate, to like see like how much stuff is coming out this year for you, like, and then knowing that like it's like you're not done yet, like those 2 records drop in the same week, but it's like, oh, don't worry, like you still got something else coming. Like, that's fun for me, like,
yeah,
as a fan of your music.
I can't wait for this record to finally be out, so I can like talk about it with other people, you know, people who haven't heard the record and stuff. You know, like it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing.
What's sick too is like a fun thing that you get to experience that I haven't really had much of is when you're playing shows with your other bands, and then people come up to you and they're like, oh, I really like that Dream Unending record.
Yeah, and
like that's cool. Like, wasn't it like somewhere you were playing on tour in Europe, and like there was a kid in a Dream Unending shirt, like at the gig?
Literally front row. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. Yeah,
that's so sick. Like, yeah, I haven't had much of that. I had one guy. I went to a show here, and he came up to me and he was like, hey, your name's Derrick, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, hi. Like, when we were talking, and he's like, I love the Dream Unending record. I'm like, oh, cool. And he's like, oh, because of you, I really like the Blue Nile now. And then for me, that was like my crowning achievement. I was like, oh yeah,
that's what it's all about, baby.
That's what it's all about. And I think and it's funny because, like, you know, like people in bands always talk about like getting like punished by fans, but rather like I'm like the one punishing fans. And I like,
yeah, you're like reverse punishing. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, like, he said it was like his like first mistake, like worst mistake thing, where he like mentioned the Blue Nile, and then I was like, hold, let me tell you, and I was like, gave him some speech about how it's like the way I feel when I hear that guy sing is like how my grandparents feel when they hear Frank Sinatra sing. And the guy was just like, oh, that's cool. And I was just like,
you try to get away. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's like, how do I get out of here? I'm like, oh, you know, he's like, I should go. No, it was fine. But like, yeah, no, like, and just like the way people connect with it was just been, it's just not something I was ready for, I guess, but it was like a really nice feeling. You know what I mean? And yeah, and like friends of mine who like I didn't know would like any of that stuff, and then being able to like kind of get them into other bands, like, you know, like I have a friend who really likes it, so I was like, well, why don't you check out this band called The Gathering? And then I have him listening to it, and then like a week later sending me like their live at Dynamo 96 set, being like, you have to watch this. And it's like that, like that exchange. Yeah. Like that stuff feels like so fulfilling, but yeah, it's such a fun thing. And then like, what was fun in the summer was like Justin and I actually got to see each other. We actually listened to the new record together, which is such a funny thing to do because like we've never been in the same room for the process. It's like, whoa, let's listen to the end result, and we're like, oh, job well done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like well, this record's good. Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah, it was fun.
That's cool. I've got some questions like from some of the listeners. I don't know if you guys want to run through a couple of them real quick.
Ask 1,000 questions.
Okay.
Is this live or
no?
Did you get these questions? Okay, yeah.
No, yeah, just before. This is just some of our some of our listeners. Let's do this one first. So, let's see here. They were talking around. Okay, so I think they kind of corrected this question. First, they were saying like the turnaround was kind of surprisingly quick. Did you feel like dabbling in like this like newer thing, which, you know, the Dream Doom fusion opened the creative floodgates more so than like some of your other guys' projects, and that's why it was quicker? Or did you have a lot of cool ideas left over from the debut, which I think we covered a lot of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have a single thing written for Song of Salvation until after I had finished recording Tide.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't have the capacity to write anything more because I was so terrified about pulling Tide off that I was like, I have to get this before I can think about anything else, right? But then because it went so well, I was so jazzed off it that I was like, oh my God, like I could do this, I could do that, I could do this. And I was just, and then like, you know, you kind of switch like your listening palette of like records, and then you're like, oh my God, like there's so many things I want to do. And then just sort of like piecing it together. And I think
that makes sense.
Tumult was sort of the same way. Like I don't think I ever wrote ahead. Like it wasn't like, you know, if Tumult was working on Manner of Infinite Forms, I don't think I had anything written for Planetary Clairvoyance at that point. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I will say when we were recording the first record, Primordial Malignity, I remember at some point Max was like, I forgot something at the music store. I'm going to go drive and get it. You wait here. So I had like an hour to myself. And I think that's when I started writing a Tumult song called Feed Them Hate, which is on a tape. It's like one of our sickest songs that I feel like not a lot of people know because it was on like the Molting tape, which is like from a few years back. But it's a sick song. I remember writing half of that while Max went to go run an errand. But like aside from that, I usually am like, I'm just going to focus on like what I need to get done, and then I'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And yeah, it makes sense. And because he said like, or did the new style just like ignite a new flame for you, which sounds like you were just like stoked on what you were doing. So you just kind of kept going forward with it. Exactly. And like, you know, when I went to record Tide, Sean, the engineer at Boxcar, you know, we used this like reverb pedal called the Night Sky. And it really helped color the record. So then when I got home, I was like, well, I have to get one. And then that could kind of help motivate me to like keep writing riffs. And but I was like, oh, it sounds so good with the 12th string. Oh, let me build some parts on the 12th string. So it's sort of like, I was more so motivated just by like the momentum of making Tide, I guess. And also, I was like, I need something to do while I wait for a mix, right? That's which we talked about. So yeah. Okay. I think this one's kind of like off of that a little bit. So like, given you're working in a genre that's less established as far as, you know, specifically what you guys are doing, have you felt more inspiration to just really take the ideas as far as they'll go, more so than like some of the more death metal projects, or do you want to draw some stylistic lines? No, I feel like, I mean, for myself, like I feel like I have way less of a net than in other bands. But maybe that's also just like my willingness to just try whatever I want. You know what I mean? Like, I think, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I mean, with Tumult, like, I mean, when we put out that tape, Aperture of Body, which was sick. I love that tape. That tape's so good. Not to like gloat about my own band, but it's so fucking rad. It was so fun.
That's the best Tumult stuff, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like that was so fucking fun to make, man. Because like we hadn't practiced in so long, and I was so pumped because like, you know, like me and Max, like we got together first initially, like in his parents' basement. And it was like, felt like the old days. Like it felt like when we first started Tomb Mold. And it was like, we're just like working on like these crazy songs. And we're like, man, this like makes us feel like when we were writing Primordial Malignity, like the first record, but like crazier. And then like, you know, we got Payson in on it. And I'm just like, you know, we're like, oh, we get to play clean now. I wrote clean parts. And like, that was sort of, we knew that there was this inevitable, like, kind of going to be like, oh, you know, they have clean parts now. And like, maybe that's because of Dream Unending, which is like half true, I guess. But like, I never saw it as like a direct link, but I fully understand why people would be like, this sounds like Dream Unending. And it's like, well, I guess so. Like, I'm in both bands, right? And I write in both bands. So it's fine. But like, and making that was so funny. Like, I got offered during that time when we started practicing again, just the three of us, I got offered to like fill in for a band for a potential tour. And like, I don't want to say who because like it would sound mean, but not mean, but like, I don't want to like talk out of turn. And I was thinking about it, and then I was at a band practice and we were having so much fun that I was like, I can't give up a month of playing with you guys to like go play on tour. So it was like, and that's when I really realized it was like the process of writing and recording music is like what I live for. Like, I like that more than playing live. I look forward to playing
Same
live
here,
again.
man.
But like just making records, like I want to, by the time I'm 50, I want to have like 20 LPs that I'm on. You know what I mean? Like I want to be like, oh yeah, here's like a bunch of shit I did. And not because it's like I'm going to be known for it or successful. It's just like, just for me, like a personal accomplishment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so like the last couple of years, like despite the pandemic, just felt like I could really hit like a creative stride. And I was so fortunate because like that band Outer Heaven asked me to play bass on their record. And I had a lot of fun working on that. And they had a lot of fun like, hearing me work on it, I think. So like it was a really like beneficial experience for both of us. And
do have a question on that Outer Heaven update. That was it.
Okay. What's your question?
I don't know if you can answer
What's
that.
Your question?
I mean, that was it. Outer Heaven update, question mark.
It's on its way. It's on its way.
Yeah.
It's like, it just needs to be mixed. But, and I'll tell you, it's good stuff. I'm
nice.
So pumped on it. Everyone just fucking delivered on it, man. I was like, it was fun because I love that first LP, but then there was this real like, all right, no, like we want to play like crazy shit, and we're gonna play more like we're gonna have like more thrash parts, and we're gonna have like these more like noodly parts, and I'm like, cool, I can't wait to play on it. And then it was a lot of fun to record bass for that record, but and then that was like a nice, you know, kind of easing into playing fretless bass because I played fretless bass on that Tomb Mold tape, but like. Yeah, just like the joy of being with those guys. I think I said to them at one point, because I had told them I might leave to go on a tour with someone. I was like, I can't go. I was like, I can't. I was like, this is the most fun I'll have this year, is like playing with you guys. And so like making the tape, it was easy. It was like everything kind of lined up really well for Justin and I to make the Dream Unending record, because Justin's backlog was more or less finished. You attract all your stuff for Innumerable Forms and Summerlands. And I had already written most of that Tomb Mold stuff, and I had already been pretty much done with writing the Dream Unending record, that I was like, oh, I'm going to put out a couple things this year. It's going to be really nice. And just like, this one I really learned about like, that's like when I felt like I really had my priorities lined up, where it was like, I just want to make music. Touring's cool and all that, but I just want to write music. And it's just crazy that people will actually listen to it. That's the craziest part of it. I still can't believe it, but like, here we are.
Same here. Yeah, that is crazy.
It's wild. Like, I know some people are like really like into their shit, but like, I love my stuff, but like when other people like it, I'm like, wow, really? Like that's cool. Like that's ridiculous, but like, I'm grateful for it. And knowing that it can actually like reach people on a deeper level, like that's something you can't trade for anything. You know what I mean? Like there's real joy to be found in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, did you have any other listener questions?
This one's kind of a quicker one. They said, have you listened to bands like Lamp of Murmur, like their Submission and Slavery release?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that one. There was another one. I don't know this one. Patriot Motion.
No.
The album was Fellflower Stream. I don't know, but they're just referencing some stuff that has like that goth 90s alt vibe to it. And like what you guys thought of that, if you did.
I like
making a connection, you know.
I like Lamp of Murmur. I think that stuff's cool. It's funny though, at like this point in my life, I actually don't. I feel like my wife is more on like the pulse of like gothy music than I am. Like I don't really listen to it that much. Actually, I write it, but I don't listen to it that much.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand though, like my listening habits are pretty terrible. Like. I listen to not the worst music, but in some people's eyes, I listen to the worst music for the most part in my like day-to-day life. Like I love, like I mean, well, if I look over at my turntable, it's the Summerlands record on there, so most listeners would be like, "That's cool." But like when I'm at home, like I'm mostly listening to like Little Feat and Toto records that I have, or Bruce Hornsby records that I have, or I'm listening to like live Fish albums, like from like the late 90s, or I'm listening to Dave Matthews.
Okay.
Like the things that I write is not what I listen to so much. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
I listen to Dire Straits more than metal at this point. I think that, but it's funny. I think about that. And then I think about, do you know that metal band Chapel of Disease?
Mm-hmm.
They made a record that has like a lot of Dire Straits like style on it.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking about that record a lot because I was like, I remember when that came out, some people were like, "This is like dumb," and I was like, "I don't know, this is actually kind of sick." I think so.
Yeah, I love
but it's
it.
like if you don't like that, then like you're not gonna like it. You know what I mean? Well, that was like I was listening to the podcast episode you guys released, and for. Like, this will come out when the record comes out, but like this is late September, and you had that one black metal band that your co-host hated.
Okay, right.
And
Crestfallen Dusk, yeah.
I was like, that's the best thing you guys played next to Tumult, because it was just different, right? Like, I think that's like with metal, like I'm always looking for something that just like sort of strays from the main path. You know what record came out last year that I felt like had a lot of spiritual connection to us, but not the same thing? It was that band, The Silver. Did you listen to them?
Okay, yeah. Some of the Horrendous guys were in that one.
Exactly. That album, like I think it's called Ward of Roses.
Yeah.
I thought that record was really cool. Like to me, when I heard that, I thought it was like that's sort of like how I feel about Dream Unending. Like I think that's their version. Like that's probably like Matt from Horrendous, like that. I'm like, when I think of if he like that's his version of like what I'm doing with this band, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was cool. But as far as like like bands that sound like, if you like Dream Unending and you like that like gothy melodramatic doom, if you're not listening to the band Vouna, Vouna, like you have to get on that. That's the stuff right there. She's like, it's like more or less like a one-person band based out of the Pacific Northwest, and that's like sprawling, epic, like tragic doom metal, and it's like it's fucking incredible. That stuff's great.
Okay,
but it's funny. Justin and I, we don't really talk about metal. We mostly just talk about non-metal bands that we like. I feel like
that is true.
Well, that was a question too. Like some general, either like some non-metal current recommendation, or not current, but stuff you've been listening to, or stuff that kind of seeped into the sound.
Dream Unending.
I know we've covered some of that.
Like the official favorite band of Dream Unending, I've decided is Live. So take that for what you will, but Throwing Copper is one of the great 90s records. I feel like we talk about like 90s music more than ever, more than anything, because like I think we're both big like Soundgarden dudes, and like
I do love Soundgarden. I do love Alice in Chains.
Were you ever in a Helmet?
I like Helmet. I don't love Helmet. It's more that maybe I don't like the baggage of Helmet. Like I don't like the Helmet imitators. But they have good records.
I saw them a couple weeks ago. Did I tell you that?
No, you didn't. How was it? Was it bad?
It was fine. It was fun. So my wife's a big Helmet fan. Our dog Wilma is named after the song Wilma's Rainbow.
Interesting.
So she was like, well, Helmet's playing, we should go. And I was like, okay. But honestly, like the band, like it was a 3-bill band and we stayed for 2 of the 3 bands.
Mm-hmm.
And the first band was Quicksand. And they were better.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen
and-
footage of them recently, and they sound pretty good. Even though they're, they have a second guitar player now because Tom Capone's not in the band anymore. But
no,
they
it's
have the guy from
but like,
Haven or something.
Everybody else is like the same. Like
Yeah.
Cage on drums. It's still was his
Sergio.
Sergio, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Helmet were good, but it was like I thought Quicksand were better.
Yeah,
I feel like that stuff. Like, I mean, we're always just talking about like the music that we grew up on. Like we have our discussions about like hardcore and like, you lived in more eras of it than I did, but like we talk about that more than we talk about metal. I feel like
we still talk about metal though.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We both love Faceless Burial. It's our favorite band.
We do love love Faceless Burial. I just did a tour with them in Europe, which was incredible. Yeah, great. I mean, amazing band.
Is ridiculous, dude.
Ridiculous, and they're ridiculous live too. They fucking brought it every night. They're I watched them every night. They're awesome, especially
for a 3-piece, man.
Yeah,
3-piece death metal is like not a thing to be trifled with. You know what I mean? Like that's like, if you can pull that off, like you're on another level that we all aspire to be on.
Definitely.
I was impressed when I saw Necrat live because they pulled it off really well as a 3-piece.
Yeah.
But
Faceless Burials is so great, and it got their new one a couple weeks back, and I'm obsessed. I mean, I'm obsessed with that band in general, but yeah, they're just
ridiculous. It's so good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great guys too, by the way. Like they're incredible people. Like we started a group chat when we were on tour with Forms and the Faceless Forms group chat, and like it's still going strong,
Yeah, those are always cool. It's you do tour with people and sometimes it's good, but like you don't really connect. Like Tomb Mold always connected really well with like the band of Feather and Bone. Like we had a group chat, going for like 2 years after we toured together.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But yeah. I guess that's the one thing I miss about touring is like actually like connecting with people in person.
Yeah.
It's like I don't get to do that so much now. So it's like if someone reaches out to me, it's usually like online. But like I like that, It's like if you like the band, you should email the band. I love emailing bands. That's like a thing that I do. Because sometimes like you never know, like it might lead to something. You know what I mean? I emailed Justin, and then here we are. We have a band.
Yeah. We got the band. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's like
straight up. It would not have happened if you didn't email. Straight up.
No, would not have happened. So this is like there's proof that it's just like it's okay to reach out to people. Sometimes they don't write you back, but then it's like fine. It's kind of funny. You know what I mean? Like it's the ones that will write back to you versus the ones that don't. Sometimes are like kind of amazing and hilarious. So like you just have to like just keep. It's like just keep throwing spaghetti at the wall or whatever. Any other user questions?
Here's the last one.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about these ones a lot more on the first one. I don't know if you've still been into these albums, but like you were talking a lot about Gene Clark, Dennis Wilson, Bruce Hornsby as influences for the last album. And they were just like wondering if you plan on leaning into that sort of like slick roots rock sound or if it's just going to continue to be more of a spiritual
wait till you hear my blues band. Oh yeah, for sure. Like I love that stuff. Like I mean Justin's privy to all my stuff, but like I actually wrote like a whole album's worth of like clean music over the summer that I'm gonna do something with.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So like I do think about that a lot because like the thing I wish is like I'm happy to have like my dad in my life to help me with like piano stuff, but it's like, my dad, he'll be the first to tell you that he's like, I'm only good to a point, and I always wish I could meet someone who is like a bona fide like player, like at a different instrument, like a piano player, like a trumpet player or something, whereas like, I'm like anything that you think you are, like, I'm like 100 times better than you at your instrument, but on my instrument. And I always like wanted to like use that to like start a band with somebody else. But the thing I realized is like I love like singers. So now my new thing is like if I meet someone that I like mesh with, I'm just like, can I like write something for you? That's sort of like how music in my head works, is like someone will be like, either write me an album or like, can I write you an album? So like Justin was just like, let's like make a doom band. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this because now I'm motivated to like please somebody. Do you know what I mean? It was the same with Tomb Mold. Max was like, we should do a death metal band and it should sound exactly like this. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do that for you. So it's like, let me do this and hope that it's good and that you like it. And if you like it, great, we'll roll with it. So now like I guess like my thing is like I want to write music where like I can have different people sing on it. Like I like the songs that I can write, but like I love vocalists and like I can't, like, you know, I can sing in like the pinch of like, hey, how should this melody go? And I can kind of help carve that out, but I would never like front a band or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I got a Fender Stratocaster over the summer. I've never owned a Strat before, so that's like a big life development for me. So I was like, oh, like, this is cool. And like, you know, we were talking about Dire Straits and stuff like that. So it's like, well, I want to write music like that. So, in answer to that question, cool. If I'm going to lean into it, the answer is I already have, but you haven't heard it yet.
Nice.
Okay. I even like,
I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard it. It's sick.
Justin hears everything I make. That's he gets.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The unique pleasure of hearing all of my shit. And like I bought like a Fender twin reverb amp. Like, you know,
you're ready. You're ready to go, man.
I'm ready to go. I'm all up in it. And but then it's great because it's like, oh, I'll use this amp on the next Dream Unending thing, whatever we end up doing, right? Like,
yeah.
So and like with Dream Unending, it's like, you know, because I feel like Doom is there's not a lot of limits on Doom. Like we can just write whatever we want. So it's like, oh well, you know, I've been working on this stuff. Like, how do I imply it in Dream Unending songs? You know what I mean? Like maybe I want to play like a solo, but it's not just like a heavy solo and stuff like that. Like where can where can we push the sound? Like where can we try things, or where can we try different things? You know what I mean? Like that's the fun part about bands in general. But also I feel like with Dream Unending, I feel like I have no pressure on me at this point because for the most part, we're a band, but we're not like a real band. Like we don't play shows, like we don't go on tour yet. So it's like now it's just like, let's just write whatever we want and just see what happens. You know what I mean? And that's pretty fun. Awesome. Like just do whatever. And that's cool.
That's a good spot to end it. We're at about 2 hours.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's no surprise. Usually they're at least
they are
around
they are. Yeah, we have a tendency to
so obviously everybody will be waiting for this one. Well, this will come out sometime around it anyway, so they won't have to wait long. But any other like updates, like Tomb Mold updates or anything else for you, Justin, like besides Dream Unending you guys want to throw out there, anything like that?
Well, I guess at Tomb Mold we're alive. Everybody knows we're alive still. Thanks to anyone who bought a tape. Thanks to selling it out so fucking fast. That was so crazy. Like we were like, I think people think that like we were trying to do some sort of like ploy, like, oh, we'll just like drop this by surprise and know that it'll like sell out fast. Like there's no scheme behind this shit. We were like, well, we hope people like it. We were like, you know, anything you might think about us, like you're probably wrong. And like, we just want to say thanks for like the positive response. Like it made us feel like we like, you know, we're still a band that people will actually pay attention to because music moves so fast now. If you don't put out something for a couple of years, it just feels like you don't exist anymore. If you're not playing shows, if you're not like working the internet or social media to your benefit, it just feels like you're a ghost. So the fact that like we made 3 pressings of that tape and they all went pretty quick and it was crazy. And like, you cannot tell you, like, I cannot begin to express like how it made us feel and like the spark that it lit inside of us. But like, if you like that tape, holy shit, like you're going to love what's coming. It's like that's like the big things coming Instagram post is like me saying that. But yeah, so Two Mold's alive and well. You never know what Dream Unending is gonna have, and I'm always working on stuff. So I'm hoping that, you know, by the end of next year I'll have a couple different things outside of these two bands.
Nice.
Including Outer Heaven too. How about you, Justin?
Nice.
Let's see. Well, the albums are out. Forms is going to do a weekend Pacific Northwest in like Halloween weekend or late October. We're going to do Texas and we're going to do Texas in December, and then we're going to do some other stuff beginning of the year probably. Just some shows here or there. And then Summerland, same thing. We've got some offers for some cool things. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're definitely going to play some shows. We better play some shows. We might as well
play some shows.
Yeah. Since the record is out. I don't know. We don't have anything booked right now, but we'll make it happen. I'm not worried.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fun.
Well, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I think
thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We dug into it. It was nice. We never get to it's just nice just for both of us to be able to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is the first podcast we've done together too.
Yeah.
First interview we've done, if you consider this an interview, more like a conversation, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and the record comes out early November. It's decent, and yeah. And then by the time, if you hit me up to tell me you like it, I'll just probably respond with, just wait till you hear the next thing, because that's what
that's
I do.
True. That's true.
And it's just like we're blessed to have a bunch of people willing to work with us. We didn't even talk about the artwork. Like, the artwork is fucking incredible, and like Benjamin Vierling is like the most talented guy ever. Like, he has every little detail had like such a serious amount of conviction between him and Matthew Jaffe, who did the first record cover. Like, it's been such a positive experience working with people on the record, and we're pumped that 20 Bucks Spin is like willing to put out music by like more or less a fake band. Like, it's great. Like, can't ask for anything else. Like, I'm indebted to him.
No doubt.
So yeah, that's it. Thanks for anyone who supports it. If you ever want to contact us. Our email is thedreamisunending@gmail.com. And if you write to us, I'll respond to you. That's sort of how it goes.
There you go.
So yeah, that's it.
There you go.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks,
man.
It was nice.
Always fun.
Nice to have us both on. It's nice to talk to you. It'd been a long time. I mean, I
know.
I bother you via text anyways, but it's always nice to hear.
Gotta have the yearly check-in.
Gotta have it. It's nice to hear your voice, and it's always a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for giving us the platform to talk about stuff.
Yeah,
and it means a lot. It means a lot.
Well, good. It means a lot to me. I'm stoked on the album. I don't think I'll stop listening to it anytime soon, but
great.
Yeah, so hopefully everybody else loves it.
See if your co-hosts like it. They're a tough sell. They're a tough sell.
I know. We'll see what happens.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Yeah, it was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Talk soon.